Click join with video. Oh my God, Auntie, we're getting somewhere.
We are. I see you and I see me.
Holy my Lord. It's hard, right?
Okay.
How are you?
I'm good. Now look at me. You see, I'm wearing my shirt.
Oh, you're wearing the snowflake shirt.
I'm wearing my snowflake shirt. And I'm putting on my snowflake hat. And I've got my bag.
Oh my gosh, Auntie. You got it all ready. You're so funny. Oh. Well, it's really nice to see you.
You too. Yeah.
So, these technology things are tough to sort out sometimes, aren't they?
Well, the thing is, I'm not very techy, and so I always assume that it's my fault.
No, you know what? It's sometimes one person doesn't know what the other one has for a program. There's all kinds of things that are just tough to troubleshoot, but here we are. Yay! Right. I was trying to think, the last time I saw you, I already know the answer to this, is when you caught a ride to Cochrane.
Right.
And then you came with Dad and Barb over to our place, and this was long before we heard the word COVID.
Right.
And you brought lots of little goodies for us, and one of them was Chillisaw.
Right.
So
right.
good.
It is good, isn't it? And I make it every so often, and that's something I need. I think I've got a few jars yet, but I don't make it in garden season. Like, I have a lovely garden, but I don't do well with tomatoes for some reason. I never seem to get, so I just buy the tomatoes. I buy the tomatoes that are cut up in little chunks, or the other kind. It doesn't matter, and that's what I use. So.
Well, that gives me hope, because I have no garden ever, so I have nothing to pull from, and I want to make some. So I have a recipe here that says Aunt Mary's adaptation of Grandma's Chillisaw.
Right.
So you have a list here of things, so I'll maybe just run through them real quick. So you said 3 quarts of diced canned tomatoes, which is about 12 cups, drained a bit if too watery.
Right.
3 cups of diced celery, 2 cups of chopped onion, tomato paste is optional, 3/4 cup vinegar, 1.5 cups of sugar or a bit less, 1.5 tablespoons of pickling salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of celery seed, a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, a 1/4 teaspoon of cloves, a 1/4 teaspoon of allspice, and a dash of cayenne pepper.
Right.
So one of the things that is a burning question for me is that the only things I've really ever canned were, is like jams or jellies kind of thing. So those always require Surto. It helps things thicken up. This isn't going to thicken up, right? I have to make sure it's the consistency I want before I put it into jars.
Right. So that is why it says that you might want to drain a little bit of the juice off the tomatoes depending on how dense they are in the can. I find the chopped ones are a lot more dense than the other ones that are, in the whole tomato. So that you kind of figure out as you go. So, you start off, and that's why I use tomato paste too. I like to put a little can, one of those small cans of tomato paste in too. And it seems to work really well. So, but I would only make, unless you are really going into this big time, I make a 1/2 of that.
Yeah, and I should the first time, because I have not even done it once.
Yeah, no, I just would make a 1/2. I should have really made the recipe for 1/2, I guess, but I was leaving it as close to moons as I could, I guess. So.
Okay, and then what about, do you ever cut the diced tomatoes smaller than what's in the can?
They're cut fairly small, the
okay.
diced. So I'll probably just leave them the way they are once they simmer a bit. And you see, it doesn't take as long, and it was as if they were fresh tomatoes out of the garden, because they're already cooked.
Yes. So, yeah, that skips a big step. I like that.
Yeah.
You kind of kill me on some of your notes here. You put,
I put my kids are crazy.
you put, can I share? You put, you talk about softening the celery and the onions and so on, blah, blah. Once again, simmer until your house is completely pickled. My kids hate the smell and will not eat it.
That's right.
You said this makes about 6 pints, but I usually make half because I use the smaller jars, which I would as well, because I don't like to have a jar open for too long and risk that, like, I want to keep it fresh, right? Because I don't have real tomatoes, I can whip up a batch anytime. I love it with just about any meal. My kids are crazy.
That's right.
So what do you like to have it with? Like mashed potatoes, or what do you put it with?
Oh, I'll eat it with anything, any kind of meat or mashed potatoes, definitely with scalloped potatoes. You have to have scalloped potatoes, yeah.
Interesting. Well, I'm really dying to try it. You're scaring me on how much it's going to make our house smell, but I don't think I mind the smell of it.
No, I don't see why you would, but anyway, as I said, my kids are crazy.
Well, I think maybe they are too, but maybe they just don't, who knows? Maybe for us, the taste is all wrapped up in memories of when we were having it and who we were having it with.
That could be. And, Mom made it in quart sealers. That's how much Dad ate of it.
Wow.
Literally, she would have, she'd make quarts of it.
Well, they probably wouldn't have grown celery, but they would have grown onions and tomatoes.
Right. Yeah, would have to buy the celery, so, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to let you know how it goes, but I might even do a video on when I'm making it, and I might use this clip in the video. Do I have your permission to do that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. So the other one I want to ask you about is the date drop cookies, and I never knew they were called that until Dad told me the name. They were called something else in my cookbook.
Okay, and I don't make them much, and yet I know Rochelle likes dates, but I find them fussy to make. Now, and I never make them look like yours. It looks so beautiful with the raspberry jam, so perfect. But yeah, I'm lazy when it comes to dates. I'd probably make a date loaf, and I have a recipe for gluten-free little balls that you roll. You make the stuff up, and then you cool it a little bit, and you roll it in balls and roll it in sugar. And I should send you that recipe. It's a really good recipe. So,
do you know that a lot of people don't even know what dates are?
I guess that's true.
It's old-fashioned, I think.
You know why that is? My face is looking. I need to get closer or something. I think that is because in the earlier days, there were a lot more raisins and dates used because there weren't as many fresh fruits available. So everything was either canned or, like people love fruitcake. My kids will not touch fruitcake. They just think it's awful.
I have to agree. I'm not a really big fan of the fruitcake, and that is another old-fashioned one.
Yeah, and that's the reason, I think, is because you had a fruitcake ready, and then you always had something. If somebody came in, you got out the fruitcake and cut a few slices and put it on the plate, and it was just a different kind of life than, but there's not near as many people that like raisins as used to either. That's another thing. So
yeah, I have to say, I wondered if dates was more because they were inexpensive. That was my guess. Maybe they're not inexpensive. I don't know. I just assumed maybe they were, and a lot of people made things out of dates.
Well, they preserve you. Like I've got a half a package of dates in my cupboard here that I probably had for 3 months or 4 months, and they're just as long as they're wrapped up tight, they don't spoil. Whereas fresh fruit does. So
right. Well, those cookies are a bit fussy. Do you know, putting that little extra dollop on the top, and I've made them with dates, and I think they're very good, but I do prefer the raspberry jam. It has to be a thick jam. And what's nice is I kind of get to skip the step of making the dates, which I don't mind. And I know Mike really prefers the raspberry ones, but I've been making them for a long time, and they are absolutely my favorite cookies.
Right. Right.
And I'm
Well,
no stranger to the cookie. I've made many cookies, but this is my favorite cookie.
right. Well, as you know, your mom's soft ginger cookies are famous here. Like
Yeah.
everybody thinks they're so wonderful, and so I make those. I've also got Auntie Myrna's Jacome cookies, which have I don't know why they're called Jacome, but they are. They have oatmeal and coconut in them, and Casey likes those too. So, like I said, they had a swim meet on the weekend. It was a provincial swim meet, and they've been taking speed. They belong to the speed club here, like, and so that's over now for the year. But so I sent along with them little individual packages, one for each kid with exact number of cookies in them, and peas out of the garden, like fresh peas just in the pod, 15, I think there were in each bag. And I said to Casey, that one bag looks a little bigger. There must have been bigger peas. He says, that'll be mine.
Smart kid.
Nothing greedy there, right?
No, that's awesome. And so what do you have going in your garden right now?
Okay, I have never had such a good garden as I have right now. I don't think I have. I've got beans, green beans. They're just beautiful. And peas, which I normally don't even plant because in this dry country, unless you get nice rains, which we've had a lot of nice rains. We haven't had like 5-6 inches, but, regular rains. So besides a bit of watering I did to get them going. So I've got peas and beans. The carrots I haven't touched yet because they won't be big enough. And I think there's cucumbers coming, little cucumbers, Swiss chard, lots of Swiss chard. I planted 5 potatoes. So, I'm sure there's potatoes under there. And I've got spaghetti squash. So that's kind of what great. So, but it's my last one. As I said, it's my last garden. So having said that, if Corey works it up next year, I might stick it.
This won't be your last garden.
Potatoes. No, it hurt too much putting it in. That was the thing. It hurt too much. So, and you got to act your age a little bit. So.
Well, and you just had your 85th birthday.
I did.
So we've got Dad at 80 and you at 85.
I know.
What the heck? So now I'm going to jog your memory a little. Do you want to?
Please.
Okay. So in the drone that I had done of, the personal tour of Snowflake that I wanted, everybody could sort of see the old swing.
Yeah.
Ironically enough, because there's so much that isn't there now, but there was that swing just standing up there for the test of time. And I was wondering if you could tell me what you remember about that old.
Well, you see, here's the funny thing, my dear. You keep forgetting that I left Snowflake when I was, and so the swing was not there when I was a child. Your dad and Wayne, I think, built that swing.
It was actually Grandpa and my dad.
Grandpa and your dad. Yeah. They built it for you kids.
For McClellan. McClellan's had grandkids under 10.
Okay.
Story.
So you see, I don't have any memories of swinging on that swing. The swing that I swung on was hanging in the old garage door. They had put it up and they put it down when it was time for swing, and there was no car in the garage. So that was the swing that I had, just a little short swing. And I probably gave your dad lots of swings on that swing. So
do you remember the picture of Mom and Dad? I might have to send that one to you again. Yeah. And Dad had said, I knew that you weren't living on the farm actually when the swing was made, because Dad had said that the swing had been built, just been finished before that picture of him and Mom, which was a year and a half before they were married. And I believe it said 1961 on the picture.
Oh, okay.
But I just didn't know if there was any memories you had of the swing with, maybe other than that your kids swang on the swing when visiting Snowflake, but that might have been about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny how it's the one thing I remember, and I can't remember if you guys were there then, about Grandpa had this magnet, a really strong magnet, and he had done, I think they must have done shingling or something on the house. And on the east side, it would have been like the bedroom window, on north of that little porch. Us kids getting how thrilling that was using this magnet to pick up all the nails that had fallen there. Yeah.
Okay.
But my kids were really excited about that. I guess I had kids by then. So
Right.
it's funny how memories are from different times, even 10 years apart, the memories can be so different.
Yeah.
And you found that from your older siblings as well. Because let's see, Wayne is Rob. I do remember to call him Rob, except when we get talking about old days, and then it's Wayne.
Yeah.
You'll be 59 this fall, and you are?
I'm 51.
51. So there's 8 years difference
Mm-hmm.
between you. So that's quite a bit of difference. Yeah.
Yeah. And, one thing you would probably remember more about than the swing is I wanted to know your take on Grandpa's relationship with all these trees.
Okay. Well, it always was that Grandpa just kept planting trees. And there would be like rows of trees, and then they'd plant another row on the outside and another row. And then when the other ones got dead, they'd take them out. And, there was always another row of trees in the making. And like when your dad was born, I was 5. And wouldn't have been too long after, well, he was born in April, and they always got these trees I'm not sure where they came from, if they came from Indian Head or where they came from, but they were wrapped in burlap. I remember to keep them, or at least they had wrapped them in burlap to keep them moist. And there they were out there on the north side of where the house would have been when you were there, but it wasn't a house there then. The house was way south of there. And out there, and I was sort of helping to look after baby Bob, who was probably in a sleigh or a wagon or something, and they were planting trees. Grandma was helping, and always planting trees. Those would have been evergreens, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and he hoed trees constantly. And this morning I was thinking of that. I was out in my garden with a hoe, which I would hope my dad doesn't know that it hasn't been kept completely shined up and everything after each use. Right. I was out there loosening up around and hauling portulaca in pails, dumping it in the garbage can. And I was thinking of Dad. Yeah, I guess I could understand. I was out there at 7 this morning. It wasn't hot, and I was no bra. I did have a shirt on.
Well, that's great.
I was out,
See, you're the opposite of Grandma.
When you don't
have a bra on, but no shirt.
Kind of fun when you don't have to, but no, that would be on Sundays. He'd go out there for some relaxation. He'd be. And the length of those tree rows, that's what you look ahead. I was thinking about when I was picking beans about the long rows of beans and peas on the farm. I'm sure you and I both share that memory.
Oh, the garden was there were so many pros and cons. It was probably so good, but you didn't really know that till you left home how good it was. But man, what a lot of work was the garden.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They were, but it was their living. It was how they, I don't know. Well, I'm sure in your mom and dad's time too, that I know your mom prided herself on having a big garden.
Oh, we had a huge garden. And then Grandma and Grandpa's garden, as a kid, I remember just when you're looking for something to do, how much time I spent hanging out with them in their garden and just helping.
Yeah.
Whatever they were doing, you could just jump in and help them. And that's a lot of hanging out with your grandparents that lots of people don't get that. But I spent a lot of time in the garden with them, picking strawberries and whatever we were picking.
Yeah. And it would be more fun with your grandparents because they wouldn't be, your parents, they they're more strict about let's get this job done. We need them and blah blah blah. Whereas grandparents are a little more. I know I am a little more relaxed. Like I grew these peas just so that the kids could. I thought they could just come and pull a few peas off, but they were too busy. They're getting too grown up now. They're too busy swimming and stuff. So I picked them, and not that there's that many, like a few handfuls. But I was telling the neighbor today, because I gave her some beans, and I said, a large milk pail, you know what the milk pail was like?
Yeah, I sure do. You can hardly carry it when it's full. Made
7 quarts, but of peas, you had to have 3 milk pails to make 7 quarts. Like Mom used to can them, you know, before the days of the freezers. So it took 3 times as many peas as it took of beans to do the same thing. I know your mom did, because I know that, because I remember being on holidays and you kids were pressed into service, and you know, it was like that was what you did. Like Rochelle's kids also are pressed into service by their dad, doing stuff with the mowers and that kind of thing, you know. Mind you, they're just riding the mowers, but still.
Oh, the grass cutting. I mean, my God, that was like a whole job. But I remember Grandpa helping me. I took on the corn patch the one summer because I was going to make the money from the corn patch. So remember, it was like $1 a dozen. And we put the signs out, and then it was corn season, and I think I made $210.
Yes. Yeah.
And I seen Grandpa trudging out there with his hoe, and I think Mom or Dad or somebody said, you better get out to your corn patch because Grandpa's already heading out there to do some hoeing, and he can't be the one hoeing your patch. You're making the money off of that patch. So I actually think that's the summer I probably screwed up my back for life ever since the corn. But Grandpa must have enjoyed, like, I don't know, I have to think that he didn't hate planting the trees or hoeing. He must have kind of enjoyed it.
Well, he did. Like he said, my mom got after him, you know, she said, you're going to die with a hoe in your hands. And he says, and I'll die happy.
Yeah. And he used to just sharpen it and take such good care. It was like a weapon. It was so sharp.
Oh, my hoe is terrible. But anyway, it still works.
I put a rake away the other day that was dirty, and I thought, oh, my God, I hope Grandpa can't see that rake wherever he is.
I know. Isn't that something?
Yeah. So that was quite a bit of work, I remember. But is there anything you want to talk about?
Well, I don't know. I just stirred up a few memories for me, which is always good. If you are interested in maybe in my story of my life at Snowflake, I gladly can send you that again. I probably did send it, and
I probably kept it. Because I wouldn't have wanted to delete that. You wrote a couple, there was 2 different emails you sent with different recollections of stuff like that. So I must find them and let you know which ones I have.
I did send you the one about Grandma, because Grandma, like Aunt, Faye Hillman had discovered something Mom had written and about her, what she could remember, you know?
Yeah.
And she sent that to me, and so I have the original, but I typed it up and sent it on. It's very interesting about, you know, like being the oldest in the family, and it's quite interesting. I imagine you have that.
I think I do. And, you know, one of the things that really stuck with me is that Grandma had said that she wasn't able to, I forget what grade she got to, but there was too many kids at home, and she had to go home and help, and she had to quit school.
Yeah, grade 8. She had just had her grade 8. And, you know, Grandma always felt that, like, that kind of affected her self-esteem. She always felt she wasn't quite as smart as other people. And in actual fact, she was very smart, you know. But that, it isn't that she begrudged that to her parents. But like my dad had his grade 11 education, you know, and they were very important for us to get our grade 12 education.
Right.
And, you know, that was sort of part of it, that lots of people, especially farm people, only had their grade 8, and then later on quite a few just, even I had friends that just had their grade 10 because they were going to work in a bank or they were going to work in a telephone office, and so they didn't worry about taking their grade 11, you know. So
Well, and to leave school when they're like, that's a pretty grown-up responsibility. Like, you're not even a mom and you're taking care of all these kids who are your siblings. I mean, that's growing up a little too fast, I think, but what do I know? That's what it was like then.
it was different times. That's exactly right. It was different times. Well, you know, I like to go back and think about these things, but I definitely am not rooted in the past. You know, I'm not afraid to move on. Having said that, I'm in my house, and I hope that I kind of hope I can stay here, but I know it may not happen. You know, I'm 85, and there's people in my life that are having some health issues, which could happen to anybody at any time, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
You know, so it's, you just have to be kind of ready. But like, I like to think that by saying that I'm not going to do certain things anymore, that's not a bad thing to say that, because it,
right.
like it, like you say, you hurt your back. Okay, so my back hurts when I hoe. My back hurts when I don't hoe.
Yeah.
So I figure, you know, if I can do a little bit of hoeing, not much, pick some weeds and then stop and go in and do something else, that's probably better than just sitting around and doing that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you have sort of I kind of struggle a little bit with any work that's close to the ground. You know, that's really hard on me, and then I think about how much time Grandma and Grandpa spent close to the ground. They were in the garden. They had a million flowers.
Yeah.
You know, or picking weeds or whatever, that circle of flowers. My goodness. But they were a lot older than me, and they were down there, so I shouldn't complain at all. But I find it does.
Maybe it didn't hurt them. Like, different people's bodies are different too, and maybe those things didn't hurt them. Like, Dad had amazing balance until the last few years. God, he was up on the bloody roof doing stuff when he was about 90.
No, I know.
No, not 90. 80, in his about my age.
Well, by the time they moved to Morden, you know, Grandpa, like reading those diaries of Grandma's there, I don't find them as interesting now that they've moved to Morden. It's kind of switched the theme of the diaries, like that it's not the goings on of on the farm. So I haven't really gotten into that much. I should, though. We'll probably just talk about who visited them in Morden. But my goodness, the things that Grandpa was doing into his 80s, because they were still on the farm.
Yeah. Well, he was stronger than Uncle Ken. Uncle Ken had bad hips, and he had hip replacements, but Uncle Ken found ways to do stuff that, you know, he did his woodwork and stuff like that. He liked doing that, and so that was his hobby. Those weren't Dad's hobbies. Dad's hobby was hoeing and, you know, fiddling around with machinery and stuff when he could, and I know at the time came that you know, it was time for him to stop doing those things too. That I think it worried your dad and Mom a bit. You know, he was. Yeah. So.
Well, probably did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I say he was climbing on the roof at my age, I guess he wasn't, because they moved to Morden in 1985. And he would have been 87 then. And Grandma would have been about 83 or 82, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And I graduated in 89, and that was right around the time, that was the same year that Grandpa died.
He died in 89,
Yeah, so he wasn't at my graduation, but, and then he died on Easter Sunday.
Right, he did.
And when they did the drone there above the farm, I really enjoyed seeing all those trees still around. Of course, I knew they would be, but it was nice to see them again. So it says we have 10 minutes left in the meeting.
Okay. So what do you want to know about my present life? Do you want to know anything about my
Of course, yes.
Okay, so on my birthday, which was at the end of June,
Mm,
that's never a good time. There's always graduations and stuff like that going on. And
right.
so we had said, well, let's try to get together sometime in July. There'll be church holidays in July. You see, I'm still involved with church stuff, as you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that would be good. And so we agreed that they made a date for us at the Happy Nun, which is a kind of it's a little, it used to be a church, actually. It's about 40 miles from, and Elena has worked there quite a bit over the last few years. It's a cool little venue. They make all homemade, interesting sounding food. Some of it I'm not that crazy about, but it's all local stuff, right?
Right.
And so anyway, we met there on not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before. And we had a brunch, and Bonnie and Chris came down, and Jill and Andrew and the two little kids, and they came down. And yeah, it was really nice. It was just better than having forced, at somebody's place. It's almost better sometimes to meet at a kind of a central point sometimes, rather than, yeah. And then because everybody's away from their home and they're not tied up with looking after the bathrooms and all that junk.
Right.
And that. So yeah, that was cool. And then I don't know, like this, I haven't gone to the kids have had swim meets. So I went for a while, and they have shelters up over top. So so that the sun was off us, and that was good. But I don't follow them to like Swift Current and Moose Jaw and all these other places when they go for that. But Val and Cam do. They're just like old grandparents, and so they followed along, and yeah, so. But I went to, some of my friends and I went to church yesterday and saw some people that you don't always see, and yeah, so anyway, it's I'm this kind of weather today and the last few days has been nice. They've been like 22, 23 degrees, and it's my kind of weather. I don't like that 30 some degrees.
Yeah, it can be a bit
too hot for me. Think of my dad. My dad could take heat. Oh my God. He could be out in that heat and never bothered him.
Well, and with the long underwear on to boot.
Oh, but that was the secret, so I got to get myself a suit of those, I guess. And
yeah, and put some salt in your hand after and
yeah,
replenish the salt. I guess he didn't have high blood pressure.
No, and you sweat out a lot of salt when you're doing.
Yeah, I guess that's what he knew was happening. But yeah, I remember picking strawberries, and we were cleaning them in the kitchen. I don't really know how old I was, but I remember saying, "What do you do with this one? It's all soft and mushy. What do you do with that when it's like that?" And then Grandpa says, "You just take it and you stick it."
Yeah.
And of course, that makes him real popular because your parents are never telling you to eat all the stuff that you're trying to prepare for the garden. And he's like the hero. Well, you just stick it in your mouth. Oh, good answer. I love Grandpa.
Here's the thing. Sometimes a person remembers about their parents as being pretty rigid about things, and you forget that once they were young, really young and carefree and feisty and did stuff that would maybe kind of curl your hair a little bit, you tend to forget that. I think it's the same every time. I think the next group, they think the same thing. I'm sure.
And they were people, not parents.
Exactly.
That's all you know them as, is you don't even know them as who they were. They're just your parent your whole life, and that you have whatever expectations you think that your parent is to have, and you don't really, I don't even know if it's our fault that you can't really view them as anything other than that, because that's a pretty large role.
You sometimes wonder how the heck they managed to have kids, because you didn't used to like to think that they would.
Well, I still don't.
That they do the nasty, or anything like that.
I still don't want to know those details.
No, isn't that something? Like, if I tell a story or something, my kids just, that's enough. Don't even
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
let me tell you a story about this bad auntie of yours.
Okay.
A week ago, we had a party, not a party, a concert in Cameron Val's backyard. Did I tell you this?
No.
It's a musical concert.
Hmm.
And I had a couple from Saskatoon. They're young, a couple of musicians. And they came down. We had to pay them. It was from our church. I think we paid them $1,100 to come down. And then we had to make sure we made enough money to cover that and make a few dollars. It was Val's idea, of course.
Huh.
And so, anyway, they got set up, and it was in the evening. And luckily, the storm held off till afterwards, and they were really good. It was about 50 people came, and we covered the expenses quite nicely. And everybody was supposed to bring your own beverage of your choice, and no, and that was good. And we had some snacks in the garage, and it was a beautiful night. It had lights all set up, and the music was music, they had whatever it takes to make the sound good. But they were staying at my place, like, because I had room. So I'd said that right from the start. Well, what are we supposed to bill at them or what? Well, I guess so. And so I said, well, they can stay at my place. So anyway, I go up and introduce myself to the guy, and I think he was probably around, he might have been close to 50, 40, 47, or I don't know, doesn't matter. Anyway, so I said to him, right up front, I said, so are you and, forget what her name was, are you sleeping together? And Val goes, oh my God. I could have been diplomatic, but I just thought, well, why not just get it over with?
Oh my Lord.
Whether I was going to have two beds or not. And
Yeah.
he laughed and he says, well, if you don't mind. So
That's pretty funny.
anyway, they stayed, and like, they are a couple, but there isn't their first rodeo. We'll put it that way. She has grown up kids, and he does too from another relationship. But they're together, So.
Well, I admired the efficiency, because who wants to make up two beds if you don't have to?
Well, not only that. I mean, you could pussyfoot around to try to figure it out. But I thought, what the hell?
That's the way to find out real quick.
When you're my age, you can just ask anything. So.
Yeah, that's right. Like, that's a very nice perk of being 85, right?
It is. It's surprising, yeah. Like my mom was, my mom was got to be quite feisty in lots of ways too. She, one time, Andy Murney, you know what she was like, or maybe you don't.
Yes, I do.
She always had naughty stories and everything. It was less than a minute. Okay. So we were talking about sex anyway. And one time Grandma said, well, I've had miles of it. Miles of it.
I know. And then didn't you say, when I replied to that, I said, what did she mean by miles? And you said, well, she didn't say kilometers.
That's right. That's right.
Well, you know what? They had such problems getting pregnant, and they had to get a boy going. So I'll bet you that there probably was all kinds of that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Got to get that boy to take over the farm, Mary. That's what it's all about.
I guess so.